This is Ryan at brewofcthulhu.com, and this is going to be a how-to video on how to make a porter ale, home brewing it yourself. This is actually the second home brew that I've made myself. I didn't get the first one on tape because I didn't know that I would want to make a website later to try to chronicle how-to videos for this. So let's get things started. Alright, let's get started with some things that you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need about 7 gallons of water. You're actually going to only need 5, but I like to keep some extra around just in case. And a locking top with a hole in it that you're going to use to put the airlock through. And you're going to need a fermenter. About 5 gallons ought to do it. This is a little stick-on thermometer that I put on there so I can see what temperature that it's going to be fermenting at. And you're also going to need a bottling bucket that has a hole in the bottom of it for a tap. Alright, you're going to need some sanitizer. I won't be using all. This is about 4 ounces of sanitizer. Only need about 1 ounce per 5 gallons that I want to sanitize. This is a no rinse sanitizer too. Keeps you from having to rinse anything that you sanitize off. You basically just let the water evaporate off of it, which is nice if you have nasty tap water like I do. Probe thermometer, can be any kind really as long as it works. Crushed malted grain. This is the porter crushed grain that includes some chocolate malt in there too. Also a grain bag. You're going to need one of these. You're actually going to steep this kind of like tea. You're going to take all the crushed grains, put them inside the steeping bag. These are approximately 7 pounds of porter malt extract. And we have maltodextrin here. I think I'm supposed to make it creamy or something. We'll see. We have starting hops, Cascade hops. These are finishing hops, pelletized form again. And this is a clarifying agent. Then you get hydrometer. This is what you're going to use to find what the alcohol content in your beer is going to be. Of course, you're going to need your yeast. Very important stuff. Won't be beer without it. And an airlock. What this does is you stick it in that top that I showed you earlier, and it basically lets air out without letting any in. Very cool. Alright, the directions suggest that you start with sanitizing, so I went ahead and I put a tablespoon of the Star San sanitizer into this little tablespoon here, and then you just want to take that, dump it in the bottom of your fermenter. Alright, so now we just fill it up to the top with water. Alright, so now that I have the fermenter full of a sanitizing solution, I want to go ahead and take the stuff that's going to be in direct contact with the beer in the immediate future and sanitize it. Hydrometer, go ahead and toss that in there. It's going to kind of float. It's a hydrometer, that's what it does. Airlock, drop that in there. Stirring spoon, going to use that later. Go ahead, drop that in there. And the lid. I try to get that to fit in there as best as I can, trying not to burn myself on the scalding hot water I poured in there. Should have thought that through more clearly. Alright, in the next step you're going to take an approximately 4-gallon kettle. 6, 7 would be better, but I only have a 4. Fill it about halfway full of water. Now you want to use the purified water that I told you about earlier. The reason you want to use the purified water is that, you know, my tap water is pretty nasty. And good rule of thumb is, if you wouldn't drink it, don't put it in your beer. So you're going to want to take that and start heating it up. Just start by putting it on high. And you come over here. I emptied out the cracked grain into this grain bag. And I'm just going to drop it right into the heating water. Like so. And make sure that it's submerged. Now, this is going to steep just like tea, and just like tea, you don't want to boil it. Now the instructions say to let this get up to about 170, then take it out. That means you're going to need this probe thermometer. Alright, so as it's heating up, you just stick your little probe thermometer in there and check the temperature. You want to let this heat to 170 like I said earlier, and the whole heating process should take 30 minutes altogether. That's 30 minutes from the time you turn the oven on and stuck the grain bag in there. If it reaches 170 before 30 minutes is up, just turn the heat down so you can maintain a constant 170 until 30 minutes has passed total. You don't really need to sanitize your probe thermometer. You're going to be probing the temperature of this, as it's boiling too. And this is going to boil, so it's going to kill anything that's in there anyway. Alright, so it reached 170 before the 30 minutes was up, so I went ahead and I turned it down to about medium. I still got about 7 or 8 minutes left on this, so I'm just going to let it sit in there until that time is over with. Alright, so this just finished steeping, so I'm just going to take the bag out. Alright, so once the grain bag is out, you're going to want to return that to a boil. And then once it's returned to a boil, you're going to have to turn it off and add some more ingredients to it. Okay, so my water is back up to a boil. So I have to turn the heat off. And I'm going to add the maltodextrin. I'm going to stir that in. And then the malt extract bags. Alright, so I added the liquid malt extracts in there. I don't know if you can see this, but it's pretty much back up to the point where I had filled it originally, maybe a bit beyond that. So I'm just going to turn the heat back on. We're going to bring this thing back up to a boil. And as we do that, I'm going to add my aroma hops. Now these hops are what are going to actually add the aroma to the beer, that nice hoppy flavor. Alright, so while that's going up to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and set my timer over here in preparation to an hour and wait for it to boil. Now while it's going to a boil, it won't hurt if you go ahead and stir it some. But this will do, hopefully bring it up to a boil faster, and also kind of combines the ingredients in there a bit better. All the liquid malt extract might be stuck at the bottom like mine is. Alright, so point number one that I forgot to mention. You're going to want to stay near this when it starts to boil. This hasn't started to come to a boil yet. You can't really see this on the camera that I'm using, but the hops are actually kind of stirring around inside the kettle, and that usually only happens right before it boils. And once it boils, once it starts boiling, that is, there's going to be a lot of foam to rise up in it, and you're going to want to be around when that happens. It could just spill all over the place.